for?
Mokey, listen, Mokey, what are we doing here?
Burt Reynolds playing an ex-con under fire as he tries to avenge a friend's murder in Stick, one of the new movies we'll be reviewing this week on At the Movies, the movie review program. I'm Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. In addition to Stick, we're also going to be reviewing Streetwise, a documentary about runaway kids in Seattle, and we'll also take a look at the success of The Gods Must Be Crazy in our special X-ray segment. But first, Gene starts with the new Stephen King thriller.
Cat's Eye is a new three-part thriller by novelist Stephen King, who works so fast and often so well that some people either think he's three people or a writing machine. The three stories in Cat's Eye have little in common. The first one is a very funny, slightly sick-humored comedy about a vicious anti-smoking clinic where your spouse can lose part of a finger. They actually go into your house and cut the finger off if you smoke once too often. That's sick, but it's funny. Story number two, a rather routine thriller about a young man being forced to walk around a Las Vegas high-rise rooftop as punishment for fooling around with a gambler's wife.
Good. Good. Well begun is half done. I just want to keep you on your toes.
Nothing special there. Story number three is a lot better as a stray cat comes to the rescue of a little girl being terrorized by a gremlin that lives in her bedroom wall. Drew Barrymore plays the girl. I would have preferred that story had been expanded to feature length, or even better, the first one about the vicious anti-smoking clinic. As it now plays with Cat's Eye, we get too little of this, too little of that, and when it was over, yes, I liked a few things about the film, but I sat there wishing someone had spent the time and the money to make one of these stories, the first or the third, into a full-length feature movie. That would have been better than Cat's Eye.
I disagree with you, Gene. I think this movie is supposed to be an anthology, just like Creepshow was by Stephen King or Twilight Zone. The material is too slight to go feature length. But what it does...
Oh, wait a minute. No, wait a second. You don't think that a story about a little girl whose pet, that cat, defends her against all her fears, she has all kinds of fears, wouldn't make a feature-length movie? It would make a fabulous
feature-length movie. That'd make another
feature-length
movie. It wouldn't make this one. This is just right as the length it is, because what Stephen King is doing here is making an anthology of our fears. And what he does, I think, in all of his work is find very basic things that we're afraid of, and then, instead of making the movie about how we're afraid of them, he directs the fears at our loved ones. For example, that smoking episode, the very first one, which is really fad with James Woods as the guy who's trying to smoke. What do you fear if you smoke? One of the things you fear is hurting your loved one. So he says, Alan King, the anti-smoking guy, this is terrific. If you smoke again, I'm going to put your wife in a room and give her electric shock. If you smoke another time, I'll put your daughter in the room. The third time, the finger comes off. This is genius, but it's just a very small idea, so it's just right at the length it's at.
Short genius. That could have been made a whole feature-length movie, too. It would have been very funny. That's my only problem here. It's three little things, and I walk out of there with three little things rather than one big thing. That would have been terrific.
I enjoyed myself. I'm going to vote thumbs up. And next at the movies, Burt Reynolds. Our next movie is named Stick, and that's the name of the character played by Burt Reynolds, a character originally written by a thriller author named Elmore Leonard, who is very hot right now and very good. I like his stuff. He was on the cover of Newsweek a couple of weeks ago. Leonard specializes in seamy, street-smart, low-life types, and there are a lot of them in this movie, starting with Stick, a car thief who's done time for armed robbery. In this scene, Stick and a friend named Rainey have agreed to deliver some money to a drug dealer, and a mob hitman named Mokey has come along for the delivery, which takes place in the wilderness of a cane field outside Miami.
All right, get out. Hold it. I want him to take it. I'm just along for the ride.
It's okay. I'll take it. I want to say hello to Nestor anyway. Sí, bueno, pues no es problema mío, negro. Tú sabes, ese Chucky, tú sabes cómo es. Sí, pero está bien, Chucky sabe de eso. ¿Dónde está Néstor? Déjame hablar con él. Déjame saludarlo. ¿Pero qué es eso con el americano? ¿Qué fue lo que Chucky le dijo a usted? Mire, yo soy cualquiera. Coño, negro, confía en mí. Americano.
scenes like that are pretty routine in thrillers, and I don't think they capture the Elmore Leonard universe, which is more based upon the personalities of these people and then absolutely canned action stuff like that. You got to ask yourself, Gene, if I knew this guy was going to get shot, and if you knew that guy was going to get shot, and you did know it.
Everybody in the audience is going to know it, too.
Yeah, so why didn't the guy know he was going to get shot? If he's smart enough to be a crook in this movie, he should have known that. The movie goes on to show Stick getting a job as a chauffeur for a millionaire playboy played by George Siskel.
Good afternoon. Need some help?
Only if you're a car thief.
I'll do the best I can.
Son of a gun.
Cost you $100.
You got it.
Okay.
Damn. You want a car thief? You think you can find a car thief? You're a car thief.
There we are.
Look at that. That's some little machine you got there.
Yeah, every housewife should have one.
That kind of humor alternates sort of uneasily with the violence in this movie. There are all kinds of various tones and moods in the film that are all fighting for screen space. Later on in the film, Stick wages a one-man war against a slimy drug dealer played by Charles Gurney with a weird orange wig and eyebrows look painted on with a thumb. Meanwhile, Candace Bergen turns up with a brief love affair that serves only to slow down the action, and the good parts in Stick come only in little moments of well-written, low-life dialogue. The plot drags along. A couple of key moments are completely unbelievable, especially the one, Gene, where the guy is hanging from the balcony by his fingertips. Going to repeat myself. If I can see how he could save himself,
Right.
and you can see
By jumping down to the floor below
he has to jump to the floor below, and instead he falls to his death. If we're expected to believe that, we're expected to believe too much.
I checked out of the movie long before that scene, and it's for just what you said. You have a film that's going to be a low-life kind of picture, and it could be a hard, gritty thriller. And that would be interesting. That's what the book is, okay? Then they throw in all these comedy elements. Burt Reynolds directed this picture. What is he doing? Hedging his bets? If you're going to buy a book like that, if you're going to option a book like that, do the book. Don't throw in comedy stuff like The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Charles Durning walking around, or George Siskel, who is one of my least favorite actors. He blows a lot of movies that he's in because he's doing comedy stuff and smiling at the screen, and that's not a low-life thriller.
You're right. You know, I've been reading Elmore Leonard, which I guess half the country is. He's on the bestseller list right now. You read one of these books, it reads like a movie script. It's all there. The dialogue is there, the characters are there, the settings are there. Why transform it by taking basically a good book and turning it into something that belongs on television?
Unbelievable.
It's a waste of good material.
It is a waste. Coming up next at the movies, let's say it's 10 in the morning. Do you know where your children are?
People get killed.
Our next film, Streetwise, a documentary about runaway children, is one of the finest films I've seen in a long, long time. I hope to see a better film this year, but I doubt that I will. It's shockingly good. Of course, the subject is sensational and compelling. Runaway youngsters in Seattle, Washington, living in flop houses, abandoned hotels, working as prostitutes, beggars, and thieves, eating out of trash cans, talking hatefully about parents who abused and abandoned them. Here are two such girls, one 14, one 16, working in Seattle as prostitutes.
My mom, first she went on vacation about 4 o'clock in the morning. They left Friday, and she comes down, and she wakes me up. She goes, we're leaving now, and I go, yeah, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, yeah, bye, you know. And she goes, I know that you're a prostitute and everything, and I know what you're doing and stuff, and I know you got money, and I jumped up like, did you look at my purse, you know? She goes, no. And I go, Mom, I am not, just leave, you know. She goes, fine, thanks a lot. She goes, I'll remember this. All week I'm going to be, she goes, all week I'm going to be thinking about how much you love me and everything. I don't care, she don't care about me. She never did. Oh, well.
My mama cares about me a lot.
Where is she? Where does she live?
She went to Eastern Washington, I think, for the weekend.
I didn't even know my mom. I was adopted. I don't even know who my real parents are. I don't know if they're dead or alive or what. I'm going to find out, though, when I'm 18. I go to the court system and find out, but I don't know. Sometimes it seems like a waste of time. If they didn't care enough to keep me, why should I care enough to find out who they are?
Well, you know, they could be rich, though, right now. You know what I'm saying? Be rich, real rich.
Yeah.
But yet they could be bound.
My real dad, I've never known. He could be the guy that's really rich, driving a Mercedes, you know. Or he could be one of these bums on the streets. I don't know. I really want to meet him. For all I knew, you know, he could be one of these dates rolling around. I could have dated him for all I know.
You won't find dialogue better than that in any Hollywood movie. And here's another street hustler. 16-year-old Dwayne, filmed as he pays a visit to his dad, who spent most of his life in prison. His father's going to lecture him in a pathetic scene.
Yeah, how much are you smoking?
I'm cutting down to maybe 4 cigarettes a day. 4 or 5.
Yeah,
that's good. No, don't smoke too much, because that's bad, too.
All right, hold on.
Still messing with that weed?
Huh?
Still messing with that weed?
A little.
How about anything else?
Nope.
Let me see your arms.
My arms, what?
Yeah. Under your sleeve.
No, I haven't been doing none of that. Here, I'll even show you here. See? Hold on. See? Nothing.
Okay. Yeah, what are you messing with?
Huh?
What are you messing with?
Nothing.
You're a smart kid. You're a good-looking kid. You've got intelligence. You've got my brain. But you're like me. You're a con man, Dwayne.
Now, here's another young girl, a con girl, if you will, working as a prostitute, talking to her mother about the sexual abuse heaped upon her by her stepfather. Did this girl ever have a chance of beating this environment?
So I can't have me living here.
I'm trying to get some input from you, Shelley. Anything but sarcasm.
That's all I get around here. That's all I ever hear from Larry.
It's his way of dealing with people.
Right. It makes me sick. From when I was little and he was a pervert. When every time I remember that, every time I remember what he did to me, what he took advantage of me.
I didn't
when
know.
I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know it until you started asking me.
But you wouldn't tell me then.
I told you that he did. When you asked me if he did a certain thing, I said yeah. And then when he went and told him, ever since then he's hated me.
Yeah, but he didn't do it anymore.
You don't find scenes like that in Hollywood movies. Frankly, the screenwriters aren't that good. They try to approximate real life. This is the real McCoy. The admissions these kids make, the emotions they reveal, the whole film makes us feel like we're eavesdropping on what really is going on in the mean streets of urban America. You'll see this film, and I know you'll think to yourself, are there these many kids leading these kinds of lives in my town, and why don't I know more about it? Streetwise grew out of a Life magazine article where the reporter and photographer established a terrific rapport with the street life in Seattle. Now that street life has been filmed unforgettably, and I'd like to credit the director and cinematographer, Martin Bell, the editor, Nancy Baker, the sound man, Keith Desmond, for capturing characters and drama equal to any commercial movie. I cannot recommend Streetwise enough.
And also Mariella Mark, who was the original photographer for Life magazine. You know, looking at this movie, there are a couple of reactions you can have to it. And the first reaction, and the most solid reaction, is certainly the one that I share with you. This is horrifying that these kids are going through this kind of existence. This is like Dickens in the 19th century in London, only 10 times worse. And you can't believe it's going on in the street in America.
And matter-of-factly, I mean, in other words...
Yeah, in other words, this is accepted. I mean... Yeah. The city...
well, there are people trying. We see some of these social workers, they don't have a chance.
Yeah,
I mean,
but at the same time, there are people who are perfectly respectable citizens who are driving their cars up there and picking up these girls and taking them out on dates. The other reaction I had was much more complex, and I hope this doesn't sound strange. I had a certain amount of admiration for the courage and resiliency of these kids. Here are 13 and 14-year-old kids living off of the streets, living off of their wits, and trying to support each other and give each other the love and the security that they did not get at home, that they could not find anywhere else in their society. And so they're breaking the law. How many legal ways are there for a 13-year-old girl to support herself? Let's face it. What amazed me was the strength of human nature that they were able to find, the resources they were able to draw on, and you think, what a waste. I mean, if these kids can survive in this environment, think what they could do if they had a fair chance.
And I'll go to a third level, which is the film level. Okay, bring it back to movies and take it out of social. Because someone could say, oh, you just like this film so much because it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Oh, no. This film, I'll compare it, talk about mother-daughter relationships. Everyone loves terms of endearment. The mother-daughter relationships in this film are just as compelling as Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine. How about the scene in the prison with the father behind the glass? There was a film, Paris, Texas, that we liked, that had a similar scene with people behind glass, Nastassy Kinski and another guy. This is just as good as that. You name the Hollywood movie, and I'll show you a scene in this film that's better.
Well, Streetwise won an Academy Award nomination this year. It didn't win the Academy Award, but
Harvey Milk beat it, and I'm telling you, this is better than Harvey Milk.
It's one of the best films of 1985. It's now opening in theaters around the country, and I hope it gets a chance. You know, documentaries are often just overlooked by people. They want to see a movie, so let's not go see a documentary. You're not going to see a fiction or a non-fiction film much stronger than Streetwise this year. Next at the movies, a special X-ray segment. We're going to take a look at a movie that's turning into The Champion. Oh.
One day, something fell from the sky.
Our X-ray subject this week, The Gods Must Be Crazy. One of the most unexpected success stories in the movie business these days is a little comedy named The Gods Must Be Crazy that has a way of opening slow and then running and running for a long, long time in lots of different cities. For example, 3 years in Paris, 29 weeks in Boston, 36 weeks in Los Angeles, and 26 weeks in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a smaller town where no film in history has ever run for 26 weeks. The movie was made in Botswana by a South African director named Jamie East, who has been making movies for 35 years but has never had a hit like this one. It starts with a very simple event, which we saw. A pilot drops a Coke bottle out of his plane, and it lands in the Kalahari Desert and is discovered by a tribe of bushmen who think that it was dropped from the heavens by the gods.
But the gods had been careless. They had sent only one. And now, for the first time in their lives, here was a thing which could not be shared because there was only one of it. Suddenly, everybody needed it most of the time. A thing they had never needed before became a necessity. And unfamiliar emotions began to stir. A feeling of wanting to own, of not wanting to share.
And so eventually the tribe just gets totally fed up because everybody's been fighting over this bottle and who gets to use it next and who gets to sleep with it tonight and so forth. And so finally, the bushman who found the bottle decides to take it and walk off into the desert and throw it off the end of the world so it can go back to the gods who dropped it in the first place. Well, he doesn't find the end of the world, although he might think that he does. He does, though, find the end of the Kalahari Desert, and he walks straight into the 20th century and into a whole lot of other characters, including a school teacher and the clumsy man who's in love with her.
Good morning, Mr. Stain.
I brought you...
Well, that's all well and good. It's kind of a South African Jerry Lewis there, and there's also a plot in the movie involving mercenaries and jeeps and border wars and all kinds of other elements that this bushman manages to walk through, and one thing kind of leads to another, and it's sort of an endless chain of slapstick events. But the question is, why is The Gods Must Be Crazy so amazingly popular? Why is this movie made more than $10 million, and it's only now going into wide release around the United States after these launching pads of the long runs in many of the major cities? This movie has no stars. It doesn't have much of an ad budget. Most people have no particular interest in seeing a film from South Africa, and yet it just keeps on running and running and running, and the word of mouth is good. My guess is people like this film because it's so simple and low-key and down-to-earth in its comedy, and because it depends on human nature for a lot of its last scenes. A lot of the Hollywood comedies we see these days seem to believe that big budgets and technology are going to get last. And so we have car crashes and we have amazing special effects.
Right.
And the technology gets in the way of the simple little gags that this movie, I think, has in common with movies from 40 and 50 and 60 years ago.
And Universal, I mean, it doesn't surprise me it's doing well in Paris. This film is imitation Jacques Tati a little bit with the clumsiness of the character. I don't think it's as good as Jacques Tati. My problem with the film is the slapstick comedy. I think if they had stayed with the Bushman story, which I think is priceless, I would have liked the film much better. But I can see the appeal of the comedy. I just think the Bushman story blows away the other stuff.
There you're right. Now, there you got into the problem, which is most movies allegedly have to be an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours long.
Right.
This movie is about an hour film, and if you could make about an hour film about the Bushmen and what they do.
Well, if you're more inventive, you can make an hour and 45 minute film.
Well,
I'd like to see this guy. I'd like to see this guy redo it. I have a feeling it may have been made with white and black characters, frankly, for commercial reasons. The Bushman story is a wonderful picture.
Okay.
So much for Coke bottles in Africa. Now to recap our reactions to the new movies on this show. We split slightly on Cat's Eye, the 3-part thriller. Roger liked one of the stories, that middle one, a lot more than I did. However, we agree, 2 downturn thumbs for Burt Reynolds' thriller Stick, a film that doesn't have the confidence to be just a thriller. It has to give us slapstick, too. And finally, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up for the teenage runaway documentary Streetwise, one of the finest documentary films, nothing less than that, ever made.
And so, obviously, we're advising Streetwise as the movie we'd recommend to see this weekend. Boy, it's strong. I mean, I sat there after the lights went up, and I was just kind of in my seat thinking, well, you know, I've really seen something.
I'll tell a little inside story about our show. We had to pick clips, right, to show. we could have picked the whole movie.
Yeah.
It was very hard. We had big arguments over which scene. No, this scene, that scene. The whole film is fabulous. 92 minutes, and there's not a dull moment in it.
Absolutely right. That's it for this week. Next time at the movies, a special program about the big boom in muscles in the movies. We're going to